a 600-ton steel monster from World War II, hinged in the middle like a giant snake, still thunders across America in 2026. A locomotive built when Queen Victoria sat on the throne is still pulling passengers in India. A steam engine climbs a Swiss cliff so steep its gears actually grip sideways, or the whole train would fall off the mountain. These aren't museum pieces. They're alive, breathing fire, hauling passengers right now, and every single one defied extinction. Number 1. Union Pacific Big Boy. Number 4014. Let's start with the absolute king of the rails, Union Pacific Big Boy. Number 4014 is the world's largest operating steam locomotive and the only one of its kind alive on the planet today. Built in November 1941 by the American Locomotive Company in Schenectady, New York, this beast measures 132 feet long and weighs an astonishing 1.2 million pounds. To put that into perspective, that's heavier than 3 Boeing 747-400 strapped together. Reading specifications on paper does nothing to prepare you for standing next to this thing in real life. The driving wheels alone stand taller than most adults. What makes Big Boy genuinely strange isn't just its size. It's the unique 4884 wheel arrangement, which means a 4-wheel leading truck, 2 sets of 8 massive driving wheels, and a 4-wheel trailing truck. Big Boy is the only locomotive class in history to ever use this configuration. 25 of them were built, and that's it. Nothing like them was ever built before, and nothing has been built since. Because it's so incredibly long, the frame is actually hinged in the middle, or articulated, allowing it to bend around curves without derailing. Watch one go around a tight bend, and you'll see the front and back literally pivoting independently of each other, like a giant mechanical caterpillar. Originally, all 25 Big Boys were built to haul wartime freight over the brutal 1.14% eastbound grade of Utah's Wasatch Mountains, normally running between Ogden, Utah and Cheyenne, Wyoming. The name itself has a fun origin. The locomotives were originally going to be called Wasatches, since they would spend most of their time in those mountains, but an unnamed Alco employee scribbled Big Boy in chalk on the front of the first one as a joke, and the name stuck. They cost roughly $265,000, $174 each when new, equivalent to about $5.67 million in today's money. Legends say they could haul trains up to 5 miles long. The Big Boys made their last revenue runs on July 21, 1959, and the whole fleet was officially retired by December 1961, replaced by diesel-electric and gas turbine locomotives. 8 survived. 7 sit on permanent display in museums in places like St. Louis, Dallas, Omaha, Denver, Scranton, Green Bay, and Cheyenne, but number 4014 had a different fate. Number 2. The Fairlie Queen. Now travel halfway around the world to India, where something almost impossible is happening. The Fairlie Queen, also known as East Indian Railway No. 22, was built in 1855 in Leeds, England, by a company called Kitson, Thompson and Hewitson. To put that in perspective, this locomotive was built before the American Civil War, before the light bulb was invented, before the telephone existed, before Charles Darwin had published On the Origin of Species. And in 2026, the Fairlie Queen is still hauling tourists. The Fairlie Queen is officially listed in the Guinness World Records as the oldest steam locomotive in regular service anywhere on Earth, an honor it received in 1998. It originally hauled light mail trains between Howrah and Raniganj in West Bengal until 1909. After more than 55 years of working passenger and freight service, it was consigned to line construction duties in Bihar, where it stayed until 1909. Then it was put on display outside Howrah Station for 34 long years. In 1943, it was moved to the Railway Zonal Training School at Chandasi in Uttar Pradesh, where students used it to learn about steam mechanics. In 1972, the Indian government finally gave it heritage status, declaring it a national treasure. Most people assumed those running days were done forever, but in 1997, the local works at Perambur in Chennai performed a miracle. After 88 years out of regular service, they restored the 142-year-old machine to full operating condition. The Fairlie Queen made its triumphant return on July 18, 1997, Today, it occasionally runs heritage excursions between New Delhi and Alwar in Rajasthan, often connecting to the Sariska Wildlife Sanctuary, pulling just 2 coaches and a maximum of 50 passengers. The technical specifications are charmingly modest. The locomotive weighs 26 tons. It has a 2-2-2 wheel arrangement, meaning 2 leading wheels, 2 driving wheels, and 2 trailing wheels. It has a top speed of about 40 kilometers per hour and produces around 130 horsepower, which is roughly the same as a modern compact car. The driver wheels are 72 inches in diameter and the boiler runs on coal. But it's been doing all this for 171 years. Try that with your Honda Civic. Number 3. The double Fairlie. Now picture a steam engine that looks like 2 locomotives smashed back to back, with a chimney at each end, 2 boilers, and the driver sitting in the middle. That's the double Fairlie, and it's one of the strangest looking machines ever to roll on iron rails. The first time you see one, your brain tries to figure out which way is the front. The answer is both ends, or neither end. It depends on which way you want to go. Invented by Scottish engineer Robert Francis Fairlie in the 1860s, this design was meant to solve a problem that had plagued railways since the beginning. Conventional locomotives had to be turned around at the end of the line, which required expensive turntables, triangular junctions called Ys, or lengthy reversing maneuvers. But a double Fairlie never needed to turn around. It could simply switch which end was forward and go the other way. The first double Fairlie ever built on the Festiniog Railway was called Little Wonder, delivered in July 1869. In 1870, Robert Fairlie organized a famous trial against the railway's existing locomotives, Mountaineer and Welsh Pony. Little Wonder hauled 110 to 120 tons up the grade to the slate quarries and took sharp curves at speeds up to 35 miles per hour. It caused a sensation, and orders started rolling in from around the world. Fairlies were eventually used in Mexico, Russia, New Zealand, and beyond. The only place on Earth where you can still see these legendary back-to-back monsters in regular service is the Festiniog Railway in North Wales. This narrow-gauge railway runs along a stunning 13-mile route through Snowdonia, hauling tourists along the same line that once carried slate from quarry to port at Porthmadog. The track gauge is just 2 feet, which sounds laughably small until you see one of these things charging out of Porthmadog Harbour Station with 12 bogie coaches behind it. The currently operating double Fairlies include Merdin Emrys, originally built in 1879 at the railway's own Boston Lodge Works, plus David Lloyd George, Earl of Merioneth, and James Spooner. James Spooner is the newest, finished at Boston Lodge Works in 2023 and entering service that November. For the first time ever, in August 2024, all 4 FR-based double Fairlies were seen together at once. What makes them strange isn't just the appearance. Both ends of the locomotive are powered. Both have steam pipes that flex around the central pivot. There are 2 fireboxes back-to-back feeding 2 boilers. The entire locomotive sits on 2 articulated power bogies that swivel under the boiler. The driver and fireman stand in a central cab between 2 roaring fireboxes. There's no tender. The water and fuel are carried in tanks on the side. This is Victorian engineering that ignored every convention and somehow still works perfectly more than 150 years later. The Festiniog Railway is quite literally the only operator of working double Fairlie locomotives in the entire world. Number 4. The Shay geared locomotive. Look at a normal steam locomotive and you see giant drive wheels connected by powerful side rods. Look at a Shay and you see something so weird it almost looks broken or wrong. The boiler is offset to the left of the frame. The cylinders are mounted vertically on the right side. And instead of rods, there's a system of gears, drive shafts and universal joints that look more like the drivetrain of a 4-wheel drive truck than a train. The wheels appear to be powered by spinning shafts running along the outside of the frame. Invented by Ephraim Shay, a Michigan lumberman and engineer in 1877. And built by the Lima Locomotive Works in Lima, Ohio, between 1880 and 1945. The Shay was designed for one specific purpose: to climb impossibly steep, rough, temporary tracks in logging country. Over 2,700 Shays were built during that 65-year production run. Conventional rod-drive locomotives simply could not haul loaded timber cars up grades of 10, 11, or 12% on hastily built logging tracks. Shays could. They did it slowly, maxing out at about 12 miles per hour. but they did it consistently and reliably for decades. The genius of the design is in the geared drive system. Instead of connecting drive rods directly to the wheels, each wheel axle is powered through a flexible line shaft connected to the crankshaft via universal joints. To compensate for the weight of the cylinders and crankshaft on the right side, the boiler is mounted offset to the left. 2 gear ratios were offered, installed according to what the buyer needed. The locomotives also navigated the sharp curves of temporary logging tracks because the trucks could pivot independently, and the geared drive could absorb the bumps and dips of uneven rails. Between 1882 and 1927, around 219 new Shays were shipped from Lima Locomotive Works in Lima, Ohio, to West Virginia alone, more than to any other state except Washington. The West Virginia Pulp and Paper Company at Cass purchased 13 Shays, including more large engines, 2 100-ton and 3 150-ton models than any other lumber company in the world. Today, the world's largest collection of operating Shays lives at the Cass Scenic Railroad State Park in Pocahontas County, West Virginia. Cass was originally founded as a company logging town in 1901. After the timber was logged out and the mill closed in 1960, the state of West Virginia stepped in. In 1963, they purchased the railroad, the town, and the surrounding land, creating Cass Scenic Railroad State Park. 8 Shays survive at Cass, and several of them are still operable, hauling tourists up Cheat Mountain to Bald Knob, the 3rd highest point in West Virginia, at 4,861 feet. Cass is the last operating Shay-geared locomotive railroad in the world, running on the same tracks that hauled timber from these mountains over a century ago. Number 5. The Darjeeling B-class, number 782B. This story is genuinely incredible, almost mythological. Up in the misty mountains of West Bengal, India, a tiny blue steam locomotive has been continuously running for 125 years, not preserved, not restored, continuously running on the same railway it was built for. B-class number 782B was manufactured in 1900 by Sharp Stewart and Company in Glasgow, Scotland. It's a small 040 saddle tank locomotive designed to haul the famous Darjeeling Himalayan Railway, which today is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The line itself opened in stages between 1879 and 1881 and is one of the most extraordinary railways ever constructed. It climbs from the plains of Bengal to the hill station of Darjeeling, gaining over 7,000 feet of elevation in roughly 88 kilometers of track. The track gauge is just 2 feet wide. The route includes spectacular loops, switchbacks, and incredible engineering features designed to manage the steep, winding mountain terrain. The B-class itself is a hugely successful improvement on the original A-class, introduced in 1889. Sharp Stewart and Company, along with later builders, eventually constructed 34 of these little engines between 1889 and 1927. They are so successful that 14 of them remain on the railway today in working or repairable condition. In April 2025, Indian Railways officially celebrated 782B's 125th year of continuous service with a special heritage run from Ghum Railway Station, which at 7,407 feet is the highest railway station in India. Members of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Railways, Northeast Frontier Railway officials, and tourists watched this 125-year-old machine, still doing the exact job it was designed to do. CM Ramesh, chairman of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Railways, flagged off the heritage train, quite literally a Victorian-era machine carrying 21st-century passengers along the same tracks it has known for over a century. A sister B-class locomotive, number 778, originally number 19, built in 1889, is currently preserved in the United Kingdom and is the only BHR locomotive outside India. According to its operators, number 778 has the oldest locomotive boiler still in use anywhere in the world, though that boiler is finally scheduled to be replaced in early 2027. Number 6. The Pilatus Railway Cogwheel, Switzerland. The year 1889. Zurich engineer Eduard Locher decides to build a railway up Mount Pilatus, a peak that towers 2,073 meters above Lake Lucerne. The problem he faced was unprecedented. The mountain slope is so steep, up to 48% gradient on the steepest sections, that any normal cogwheel system known at the time would literally fail. The conventional vertical cogwheels would climb out of their rack teeth on the steepest segments. The whole train would topple over, fall off the rack, or both. Loca's solution was so radical, it had never been tried before, and remarkably, it has never been used anywhere else in the world since. He turned the rack on its side. The rack rail is mounted horizontally between the tracks, with symmetrical teeth on both sides. The locomotive engages this rack using a pair of horizontal cogwheels that grip the rack from both sides simultaneously, like a giant mechanical jaw. The combination not only ensures positive meshing of the rack and wheels under any load, but it also literally locks the train to the mountainside. No combination of wind, gravity, or weight can disengage the cogwheels from the rack. The Pilatus Railway is the steepest rack railway on Earth, with a maximum gradient of 48% and an average gradient of 35%. The line is 4.62 kilometers long, running between Alpnachstad on Lake Lucerne and Pilatus Kulm. It opened on June 4, 1889, originally using steam rail cars. The track gauge is just 800 millimeters, or about 2 feet 7.5 inches. Operating speed is just 9 kilometers per hour downhill and about 10 uphill. There's a reason it's slow at 48% grade. You really want it to be slow. The line was electrified in 1937, and in 2023, a fleet of new Stadler rail cars entered service. The new fleet uses ABB traction inverters and consumes 30% less energy than the previous generation. But here's the thing, the original locker rack system devised in the 1880s is still the only thing keeping these trains attached to the mountain. No other railway on Earth uses this design. It's that strange, that specialized, and that effective. The railway has carried passengers safely up that cliff face for 137 years without a single fatal accident attributable to the rack system itself. Some of the early cars didn't even have flanges on their running wheels. They were unnecessary because the horizontal cogwheels guided the car. Flanges were eventually added so the cars could be moved through standard rail sections during maintenance. Today, the cogwheel railway invests around 55 million Swiss francs into modernization while keeping its 130-year-old engineering miracle intact. It remains a feat of Victorian boldness preserved in pristine working condition. Number 7. The Mount Washington Cog Railway Locomotives. Cross the Atlantic to New Hampshire, USA, where you'll find the world's first mountain climbing cog railway, opened on July 3, 1869. The Mount Washington Cog Railway climbs to 6,288 feet on grades that reach 37.4% at a section called Jacob's Ladder. It's the second steepest rack railway on Earth, just behind the Pilatus Bahn. The railway has been declared a National Historic Landmark and is a designated American Society of Civil Engineers, Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. The railway was conceived by Sylvester Marsh, who climbed Mount Washington in the early 1850s and was nearly killed by a sudden storm. He decided this peak should be accessible by train. Despite considerable backlash from people who thought he was insane, legend has it the New Hampshire legislature added an amendment to his charter, offering him permission to extend the railway to the moon. Marsh's plan worked. Construction started in 1866, and the first train reached the summit on July 3, 1869. Among the early passengers was President Ulysses S. Grant, the Union general who had won the Civil War for the North. The very first locomotive was officially named Hero, but locals took one look at its weird vertical boiler design, which looked like a pepper sauce bottle sitting upright, and nicknamed it Old Pepper's Ass. That name stuck. Old Pepper's Ass produced just 45 to 50 horsepower, but it could climb the mountain. It's preserved today at the base station as a National Historic Treasure. But here's what's strange about the locomotives that came later. Look at the two coal-fired steam locomotives still running here today, and you'll notice their boilers are tilted permanently. On flat ground, the boiler angles downward at about 15 degrees. Why? Because steam locomotives need water above the firebox crown sheet at all times, and on a 25% average grade, a level boiler would expose the crown sheet to direct flame contact. That causes catastrophic boiler explosions. So the boilers are mounted at a permanent angle, which means they only look right when the locomotive is climbing the mountain. On flat ground, the entire engine looks like it's sliding forward off its frame. Number 8. The Beyer-Garratt. Now we travel to southern Africa, where one of the most bizarre and powerful locomotive designs ever conceived still occasionally fires up. The Beyer-Garratt is essentially a steam locomotive split into three parts. There's a boiler and cab in the middle, suspended like a hammock between two separate engine units. At each end, there's a complete engine unit with its own driving wheels, cylinders, and water or fuel tank. The whole thing is articulated, with the boiler resting on pivots above the engine units. This strange layout had huge advantages. The boiler could be enormous because it wasn't constrained by wheels underneath it. The firebox could be wide and deep because there were no driving wheels in the way. The locomotive could navigate sharp curves because the engine units pivoted independently from the central boiler, and the design spread its enormous weight across a long wheelbase, so a Garratt could deliver massive power on lighter mountain or colonial track that wouldn't support an equivalent rigid locomotive. The patent was developed by Herbert William Garratt, and the Manchester firm Beyer, Peacock and Company became the main builder, producing them from the early 1900s through 1968. The biggest Garratts ever built were the South African class GMA and GMA M482 plus 284 locomotives, introduced in 1954. South African Railways operated 120 of them between 1954 and 1958, making them the most numerous Garratt class in the world. They had four 20.5-inch by 26-inch cylinders, weighed about 241 tons for the locomotive plus 50 tons for the tender, and were 93 feet 10 inches long. They were the last class of Garratt to remain in active service with South African Railways. The very last steam locomotive ever built by the famous North British Locomotive Company was a GMAM number 4140, completed in 1958. All but three of the GMAM class were withdrawn by April 1988, and the last three were retired shortly thereafter. The last brand new Beyer-Garratts ever built were 8 2-foot narrow-gauge South African Railways class NGG-16 locomotives, delivered in 1968. Beyer-Peacock had stopped manufacturing them itself by then, so the contract was sublet to the Hunslet Engine Company of Leeds, which used its South African subsidiary Hunslet Taylor to fulfill most of the work. Boilers came from the parent company in England. Number 9. The Snowdon Mountain Railway Steam Locomotives. In 1894, work began on Britain's only public rack and pinion mountain railway, climbing Snowdon, known in Welsh as Yr Wydfa, the highest mountain in Wales at 3,560 feet. The British, despite their world-leading railway expertise, had no experience in mountain railways at the time. So they ordered locomotives from the people who knew best, the Swiss Locomotive and Machine Works in Winterthur, Switzerland. 5 steam locomotives arrived in 1895 and 1896. They were named LADAs, Enid, Wydfa, Snowdon, and Moel Syabod. LADAs was an acronym standing for Laura Alice Duff Asherton Smith, the wife of a major local landowner whose family controlled access to the mountain. The construction took 14 months and cost £63,800, over £10 million in today's money. About 150 men laid almost 8 kilometers of track up the mountain, using picks, shovels, and dynamite. On opening day, Easter Monday, April 6, 1896, disaster struck. LADA's, the very first locomotive, was operating the first public passenger train. On its return journey down the mountain, it derailed, went cab over wheels down the slope, and ended up at the bottom as a complete wreck with only the pistons, motion gear, frames, and wheels still intact. It was damaged beyond repair and scrapped. The railway closed temporarily, additional safety measures were installed, and it reopened in 1897. Since then, the Snowdon Mountain Railway has operated without further serious incident. The other 4 original locomotives survived. 3 more, named Padan, Aylwin, later renamed Ralph, and Erai, joined them in 1922 and 1923. And here's the incredible thing. 3 of those original Victorian-era Swiss locomotives, plus the improved 1920s engines, are still operating on the Snowdon Mountain Railway today. 7 steam locomotives remain in operational use. They push, never pull, a single carriage up the mountain. Number 10. The Brienz Rothorn Bahn. We end where we kind of began, in Switzerland, but with something unique. The Brienz Rothorn Bahn is the only daily steam-powered mountain railway left in Switzerland. While the rest of Switzerland electrified its mountain railways decades ago, this one still runs on coal and water every single day during its operating season. Walk up to the station in Brienz and you'll smell coal smoke. You'll hear the hiss of steam. You'll watch fireboxes being shoveled full of coal by hand. It's like stepping through a portal back to 1900. The line opened in 1892. It climbs from the village of Brienz on the turquoise shores of Lake Brienz, all the way up to the 2,350-meter summit of Brienz or Rothorn. The total route is 7.6 kilometers long, climbing over 1,600 meters of elevation. The track gauge is 800 millimeters, the same as Pilatus. The journey takes about an hour each way. The maximum gradient is around 25%. The total active fleet includes 11 steam locomotives, 8 of which are operational. The railway also has 3 diesel locomotives in case of high passenger demand or technical issues. But the heart of the operation is steam. Even more remarkable, 2 of the original first-generation locomotives from the railway's founding period in 1891 and 1892, locomotive numbers 2 and 5, are still in regular daily service. That's over 130 years of continuous operation. 2 more original locomotives from that early period remain on the property and could potentially be returned to service with major work. For a single round trip from Brienz to Rothorn, and back, a first-generation locomotive burns through 300 kilograms of coal and 2,000 liters of water. With a crew of 3, engine driver, stoker, and conductor, they can carry up to 40 passengers. The second-generation engines, built in 1933 and 1936, consume 350 kilograms of coal for the same trip, but can carry up to 72 passengers thanks to their larger capacity. Each engine needs about 1,000 hours of maintenance every winter to keep running. That's almost an entire person's full-time job per locomotive every year. If you enjoyed this journey through the strangest survivors of the railroad world, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Which one of these 10 would you most want to ride? Drop your answer in the comments below and tell us if there's a strange surviving locomotive we missed. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the rails.